Hey everyone, I'm back. This is Chris from Love Means Nothing. I hope everyone is doing okay emotionally these days. I know it's a tough time of year. Luckily, the Australian Open always saves me in the middle of winter because it's something to get excited about. I love watching it online, the turquoise blue. I love the blue courts. It makes me happy, but at the same time, it makes me kind of sad because I always wonder why I'm not there in person when I'm freezing my ass off here in Canada. And then I start judging myself about the choices that I've made in life, how I wish I could be a bit more successful and have the freedom and flexibility to be in Australia when I want to be. Um, but here I am. I'm here in Vancouver. Life is still okay. I'm not complaining. It is freezing outside these days. Some Arctic front came in, and everyone that has a Tesla realizes that it was probably a mistake. And I had a Tesla. I sold it a couple months ago, and I'm glad I did because I feel like the valuations of Teslas are starting to really. I think every secondhand vehicle it's going to take a hit in 2024, but particularly Teslas. I'm not a hater on the company. I actually like the company. I don't own any. Well, I do actually own some Tesla, but I'm waiting for the stock to come down. I just feel like there's a lot of negativity around it these days. Let the stock come down to mid 100s, low hundreds, and I'll jump right back into it. But this is not a financial, none of the financial advice I provide, okay? Do not take it literally. Do not buy stocks based on what you hear in this podcast. Okay, that is a disclaimer because I actually don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's jump into tennis. Okay. Before we jump into the Australian Open, let's just go through a little bit about what's been happening on court. One historical, I guess you could call it historical, event has happened. Richard Gasquet has left the top 100 for the first time in over 18 years. It's actually a pretty incredible record considering he's made 3 Grand Slam semifinals. He doesn't have a ton. I think he's got 15 ATP wins under his belt. So he did make, I think, a high ranking of number 7 in the world in 2007. So obviously a successful career, but at the same time, he was hyped up to be a lot better than he ended up being. Every time he plays, I feel like he's gonna fall over and have a heart attack because he always looks so incredibly exhausted when he's out there. But in any case, he dropped out of the top 100 with a loss in, I think it was in New Zealand. What's the capital of New Zealand again? Anyway, he won the tournament last year, so he obviously had a few points to defend. You know, an interesting fun fact about Gasquet is that in 2009, he could have actually very easily left the top 100. He just avoided a 1-year suspension when he was tested positive for having cocaine in his system. He fought the case or the charge against him, saying that the cocaine in his system actually came from making out with a random girl in a nightclub who had been doing cocaine herself, and therefore that got him off. That got him off unbelievably so. I actually didn't know that you can transfer traces of cocaine in saliva, but maybe you can. It makes sense. I don't know. I'm not a cocaine guy. I've never done it. No plans to do it. But for those that frequently do blow, please let me know. You can write the show. Of course, you'll be giving away that you're a cocaine user, but I want to know if it can be transferred in saliva or not. So please post, but maybe not publicly. Just do it privately to me. Okay. I'm looking at my notes here. I did start watching season 2 of Breakpoint a couple days ago. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Maybe it's probably on par with season 1. My favorite episode so far, I'm only about 4 or 5 episodes in, is the one with Zverev, Alexander Zverev. I just find it the most entertaining episode. He has a few things to say about Medvedev, how he has no respect for Medvedev based on the antics that he used in some of the matches playing against him. He thought it was kind of unfair, unfriendly. and just not a great way. I'd say Zverev considers himself as a sportsman where he respects his opponents and the sport. And he basically said that Medvedev doesn't. Medvedev was asked about that and he said he didn't really watch it, but people that know him know the type of guy he is. And of course he was going to answer it that way. So that was a little bit of drama. Some people were upset that that Netflix completely ignored the fact that there were some ongoing charges against Zverev for assault against his girlfriends. It was not brought up at all in the show, and some people feel like it should have been. I'm not sure if it should have been or not. I don't really have an opinion on that one. What else happened? The Rune episode was pretty good. His mom is a little bit crazy. There's no question about it. Sometimes you need crazy parents to be pushed really hard and be great at sports, but his mom definitely checks that box for sure. So I'll talk a little bit more about the show when I watch all the episodes. There's another one on Pagula, talks about her family, which is an incredibly impressive family, how her mother and father own the Buffalo Sabres and the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, they're billionaires many times over. So, there was a point that was kind of cringeworthy where she's like giving a pep talk to the players. You can tell that she doesn't want to do it. You can tell the players don't want to hear it, but Netflix probably asked her to do it, and it was just super awkward. Anyway, moving on from Breakpoint. The U.S. Open episode was pretty good too. The one that follows, it follows the American players. It follows Tiafoe. It follows Ben Shelton. It follows Tommy Paul. Obviously, a lot of Americans got deep in the U.S. Open last year. The Tiafoe-Shelton match in the quarters, where Shelton did the phone drop and then playing Djokovic, etc. There's a little bit of drama around that. So that was a good episode. Other interesting news is Ons Jabeur. Okay, and this hasn't got a lot of media attention, but I think it's interesting because she recently just left Lotto, which was her clothing sponsor for the past decade, and she joined. It's called, and I might butcher this name, but I believe it's called Kayani, and it's a Saudi Arabian sports brand that has ties to the princess. I know there's many in Saudi Arabia. And she also was quoted saying that it would be an honor if she could play in a WTA finals event in Saudi Arabia. She obviously comes from Tunisia, another Arab country. So I don't know how you want to look at this, but, the WTA has had a lot of strong words against Saudi Arabia and kind of the treatment of women in that country. But Ons Jabeur is definitely taking the other side of that. But she's kind of like a darling child in a way in the WTA. So it's largely being ignored by the media and the WTA. But it's interesting to see what comes of that. She's also a member of the PTPA. And you wonder if, they're working closely, with Saudi Arabia as well, considering a new tour. So I just find it interesting. I want to dig into a little bit more, but nobody's talking about it. Okay, so you heard it here first. Another piece, another interesting thing going on right now is okay, I'll start again. So Amer Sports, okay, it's a Finland-based company. There's roots to China as well. Maybe it was just acquired. I'm not really sure. But they own, this company is the parent company of Wilson Sporting Goods, obviously Wilson tennis rackets, Louisville, like the Louisville Slugger baseball bats, Salomon, which is a ski company and probably touches on many other sports, Arc'teryx, Peak Performance, a number of brands. They do roughly 3.5 billion in sales on an annual basis. They're going public. They just announced an upcoming IPO, initial public offering. I believe at a valuation close to $10 billion. They're looking to raise roughly $1 billion in this IPO. Chip Wilson, who is the founder of Lululemon, outspoken individual, great entrepreneur. He owns roughly 25% of the business. I think he invested probably at the time, maybe $1 billion something. I think he bought in when it was valued at 4 or 5 billion. So looks like he's about to make a cool billion on that. He's been in the press a little bit himself. I personally love Chip Wilson. I think he's a genius, but the woke don't really like him. Okay, because it was about 10 years ago on Bloomberg where he made that comment that got completely taken out of context about women. Basically, the media portrayed it like he was saying that big women shouldn't be wearing Lululemon tights. And that was completely incorrect. The reality is, the factual thing, what he said was that a lot of women were treating Lululemon pants as if they were Spanx. Okay, and Spanx uses completely different fabrics, which actually try to hold in excess fat or whatever. We all know what Spanx is used for. It's kind of sucks everything in. Lululemon pants are not made to do that, and the fabrics aren't. So what he was saying that women that should be wearing a large or an extra large are often buying smalls or extra smalls, and therefore they're stretching out the fabrics, and they shouldn't be doing that. Completely factually correct, got taken out of context. About a month ago, Chip Wilson again was on the wrong side of the media because he was saying that Lululemon is a brand that shouldn't be advertised or marketed to everybody, because brands, to build an amazing brand, you have to be very specific about who you are targeting, who your customer base is. And he's been saying that for the last 20 years. Since the start of Lululemon, he was saying, who his customer was. It was that 31-year-old professional woman that has a condo, living in the city, university educated. He's very specific about who his target customers. And it's true, you can't be everything to everyone. But again, when he says that, a lot of the woke take it out of context. They hate on him. It's actually funny because I used to listen to this podcast. It was about what was it called? I was with Guy Raz. It was just, he would talk to different founders. And I recall before having Chip Wilson on the show, he made some disclaimer about, Chip, and it was a hard decision to bring Chip on because of the background here, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous, because he just had a guy on the previous show. What was the shoe company called? But anyway, he was a founder of a shoe business. It was a big company, but back in the 90s, he was featured on the Wolf of Wall Street. They ended up taking him public. Anyway, the guy went to jail for securities fraud for 2 or 3 years, but there was no disclaimer made there. Okay, but for Chip Wilson, they did it. The media is completely unfair against him. So I just had to put that out there. But anyway, good for him, making some money, and he doesn't listen to the haters. Obviously, he doesn't really care. Let's move on to the Australian Open draw. I'm just going to pull it up here on my phone. So let's get into the men's side of the draw first. Okay. So the top quarter features Novak Djokovic and Stefanos Tsitsipas. Djokovic is Djokovic, so you can argue that he has a decent draw, but it's actually, relatively speaking, it's not an easy draw. His first player that he plays against is a qualifier, but it's some kid who I believe won one of the junior Grand Slams last year. Maybe it was the French Open, or it might have been the Australian Open juniors last year. So obviously the kid can ball. Okay. I'm sure he brings some firepower. Joker shouldn't have that much trouble, but it should be interesting. His second round, you might have to play Popyrin, who's in Australia. No issues there. He would have to play probably Echeverry, in the third round, then Shelton, then Tsitsipas. Anyway, tough draw. Andy Murray continues to get shit draws. Basically, in every tournament he's played in the last 2 years, first round, he'd have to play Echeverry. And then if he gets through, and then if he got through a second round, which wouldn't be that easy, he'd have to play Djokovic in the third. Okay. Shelton, I think, should get through to playing Djokovic in the fourth round. Although, watch out for Shevchenko, that Russian guy, that Russian kid. He is married, but like I said in a previous part, he looks like he's 15 years old. You never know. Wawrinka's in there, but I think so. I think Shevchenko will be playing Shelton, and that'll go 5. And whoever wins that, obviously, will be playing Djokovic. On the other side of this quarter, Fritz has a good draw. I don't know what Fritz is, how he's looking right now. I haven't seen him play in a while, but Fritz has a good draw. So if he's playing well, he should get through. There is Mrazin. He's that Hungarian guy that beat Alcaraz on the clay last year out of nowhere. So if not Fritz, I would say Mrazin's going to get through to the 4th round. And then, the blockbuster first round is Tsitsipas versus Berrettini. Normally, I would actually, when Berrettini was in good form, I'd say Berrettini, but, I just think that he's still struggling physically. He hasn't had many matches under his belt. Tsitsipas has been playing in Australia in the, not the United Cup, but whatever that cup was. So he's got some matches under his belt. Probably Tsitsipas is going to win that one, but I hope Berrettini wins in a way because I miss Berrettini and I want him to get back and be a fixture in the top 10 again. That'd be amazing to see, even the top 20. And Musetti has a decent draw, but either way, I think Tsitsipas will probably get through there to the 4th round. Okay, let's go to the second quarter here. It features Jannik Sinner and Rublev. Sinner's got a good draw. He'll definitely get through the 4th. Tiafoe has a shitty draw. He has to play Coric in the first round. Then if he wins that, it looks like there's that Czech guy that my previous guest, David Zork, liked. I never heard of him, called Machak. He's a Czech guy. I should probably know how to pronounce that since I'm half Czech. And then he'd have to play Khachanov potentially in their 3rd round. Khachanov is playing Altmaier, the German guy in the first round. I don't think Khachanov's playing that well these days. He's still struggling a little bit coming back. That might be an upset there. So watch out for that. De Minaur has a tough first round against Raonic. Raonic, he might not even play for 6 months, but he's still dangerous because he's got an absolute cannon. And he's going to take away basically De Minaur's biggest asset, which is his speed, because Raonic doesn't play long points. So that's a really bad first round match for De Minaur. Jari is on that side as well. So De Minaur and Jari maybe playing in the 3rd round. I'm not really sure what happens there. I think De Minaur should get through. I don't know. He might get through the 4th round. We'll see. And then on the other batch of that quarter, you got Sebastian Korda and you got Rublev. I think Rublev's going to get through. Korda, by the way, everyone. Okay, so Korda's an amazing tennis player. Okay, I'll just say that, and he's got incredible shots, but I think he's a little overhyped. I just don't think he has the killer instincts. He's boring to watch. Yes, he hits beautiful shots and he has easy power, but he has no personality out there. Like watching him in these warm-up tournaments in Australia, it was super boring. I tweeted about it. Some people agreed, but I don't really get a whole lot of love on Twitter. But anyway, we'll see what happens. But I don't, people used to say, hey, Korda is going to be a top 5 player. I never see that happening, to be honest. Let's move on to the next 3rd quarter. You got Rune and Medvedev in that one. Rune has a very good draw. In the 3rd round, he'll have to probably play Fils or Griekspoor, but he should be able to get through those. Either of those. Not easy, but I hope a 3rd round in a Grand Slam isn't easy. So he should be in the 4th round, and he'd likely be playing Hurkacz, who has a very good draw. Shapo's back. He plays a quali in the 1st round, and if he gets through that, you have to play Hurkacz, which unlikely that he wins. So Hurkacz, I don't have high expectations for in Australia, but because he has such a good draw here, he'll probably get through. Play Rune. Rune will get through and get to the quarterfinals, in my opinion. On the other side here, we've got Dimitrov versus Fucsovics. Everyone is talking about how they're so hot and nobody wants to see them play with their shirts on, or maybe not even their shorts on. And then it would be a duo of who has the nicest body, biggest package, and I would say Dimitrov probably might even win that based on how many girls he gets. I know he's a good-looking guy, but there's got to be something else going on there too. But I don't really know much about Fucsovics' private life, so maybe he's got a strong cycle too. Don't know. I don't know, or rotation. I don't know. I said cycle, it might be rotation. I don't know. I've been out of the game for so long. I don't even know what terms kids are using these days. Going down the list, you got Fokina. So let's say Dimitrov gets through. He's in good form. He play Fokina. Dimitrov should get through the 4th round. In that case, he would play Medvedev, who has a pretty good draw. He plays Rusevori in the 2nd round, but then Aliassime is the seed on his side. No problems there because Aliassime forgot how to play tennis over the last year. So I say Medvedev is going to be playing Dimitrov in their 4th round. And based on how Dimitrov is playing, you never know. There could be a big upset there. Last quarter of the men's draw, you have Carlos Alcaraz and Alexander Zverev. Okay. Could be a good one. Zverev has a good draw. He'll play Lehecka in his 3rd round. Lehecka just came off the win, okay, in Adelaide, so obviously confident, but I think Zverev should take that. So I'm saying Zverev in the 4th. I'm saying Zverev actually in the quarterfinals because he would either face Rude or Cam Norrie or Purcell potentially. I don't know. Either way, he's going to win that one. But that little bracket there is pretty wide open as well. Rude seems to always have good draws in Grand Slams. I just don't get it. So he'll probably get to the 4th round and lose to Zverev. Tommy Paul has a fantastic draw. No, he'd have to play Draper in the 2nd round, and Draper's playing well. So this could actually be a big opportunity for Draper to get to the 4th round. It's either going to be Paul or Draper, because whoever wins that will be playing Struff, who might not even get there because he's always hurt. He's seeded 24, but I don't think he's on top of his game. So it might be a no-name that gets through there. And then Alcaraz, he has a good draw. He'll be playing potentially Bublik in his 3rd round. No problems there. Then he'd be playing probably Tommy Paul or Draper. No, you know what? Like I was saying before, Tommy Paul is Alcaraz's kryptonite, but he should get through him, but he always gives him fits. So that's basically the draw right there. It's pretty evened out on both sides. Sometimes you see draws where they're completely one-sided on the top half or the bottom half, but this looks like a pretty good draw. You can't really bet against Djokovic because the Australian Open to Djokovic is becoming like, Roland Garros to Nadal. He's completely dominant on that court. So you got to go with Djokovic, but you never know. Something could happen here. Alcaraz, I don't really know the form he's in right now. But I don't know who else is in the draw that could really take him out. So we shall see. Moving on to the women's draw. I haven't looked at this yet. Swiatek versus Kenin 1st round. Okay, so Swiatek's looking good. I know Kenin won a Grand Slam, but she's nowhere near what she used to be, and she was only kind of like a one-hit wonder or a 1-year wonder. Very weird person. Comes off very off. Anyway, so Swiatek's going to win that. She'll play the winner of Collins versus Kerber. That's kind of a fun little top of the draw there. I still think Swiatek's going to get through. Then she'd have to play Buskova. Okay, Swiatek has a pretty bad draw. And then if she were to get through that, she would be playing Svitolina. Probably Svitolina has a good draw. She's got a pretty clean slate to Swiatek in the 4th round. Ostapenko, who just came off a win. My girl, Ostapenko, probably my favorite player right now in the WTA. Just love her attitude out there. She's a killer. She looks like she has a decent draw. She'd have to play either Martic or Tomljanovic. That'll be maybe center court. They're kind of crowd pleasers, I would say. But either way, Ostapenko should get through there. She'd play Azarenka in the 3rd round, and that would be a fun match to watch. So we'll see. And then Vondrousova looks like she has a pretty good draw to get through. Okay, second quarter of the women's draw, you got Rybakina and Pegula in that one. Rybakina, she has to play Pliskova 1st round. That's a tough one, but if she gets through that, it looks like she's got a pretty decent draw to the quarterfinals. And Raducanu is in there. She plays Shelby Rogers first round. Probably actually it's a pretty good draw for Raducanu. And then if she wins that, she'd play Christia, who's seeded 22. Don't really know her game, but you know what I mean? If Raducanu is on, and if she is on, she can out hit people. We saw in the US Open a couple of years ago. She actually doesn't have anybody in front of her in the early rounds that would kind of be very, very difficult to beat, like a Swiatek, for example. Pegula has a good draw. So I think Pegula hasn't been playing well. She had a warm up. She came out, actually, she was sick. So she had to pull out. So maybe she's playing okay. I don't think it was actually a defeat. So I don't know, but I'm thinking Rybakina gets through that one, that whole quarter. The third quarter of the women's draw, you got Sakari and Goff. Sakari was featured in the Netflix Breakpoint again. I'm not sure why, because it's not that interesting to watch. You got Hadid Maya, or however you pronounce it. She can be dangerous. You got Garcia versus Osaka, okay, in the first round. So this is what people are talking about here. Everyone wants to see this match. Garcia is an incredibly up and down player. Okay, when she's playing well, she can beat anybody. But it's not like she just plays well out of nowhere. It's like when she has momentum and she's had it comes in batches. It's not like, oh, I'm going to play one tournament well and then one tournament bad. She plays like 10 tournaments well and then 10 tournaments terrible. I don't think she's playing well right now. So I actually think Naomi Osaka is going to get through that. And that would basically give her the 16th seed draw. And she's got a pretty good draw. It could be Osaka Goff in their quarterfinals, which would be very interesting to watch. And Goff should get through. She'd have to play Leylah Fernandez in the third round. That shouldn't be a problem for Goff. So I'd say Goff should get through that I think Goff should get through this entire quarter and get to the semifinals. Last quarter of the women's draw, you got Sabalenka, who has a very good draw. And you've got Jabeur. I don't think she's playing that well. I think Jabeur is probably on the downslope of her career, to be perfectly honest. And then you've got this is a poor quarter. Oh no, you have Andreeva. Okay, the Russian girl who's 16, 17 years old. She would have to play Jabeur in the second round if she gets through. I've only seen Andreeva play once or twice, and I really liked what I saw, but I haven't seen her enough to be fully committed to her future success in tennis. But what I have seen, I really like, and I do think that she's going to make waves in this sport. I like her attitude. So maybe this is going to be her first big run in a Grand Slam. She's got a pretty decent draw, to be honest. If she can get through Jabeur, she takes number 6 seed in the tournament. And you might see her in the quarterfinals. So that should be interesting. But then she'd have to play Sabalenka, and she's just not big enough. She is not strong enough, in my opinion, at this point to beat a Sabalenka. But we shall see. Okay, that's the recap right there of the Australian Open draw. The tournament starts today. It's probably starting right now, like literally this hour. So I'll be fixated to the TV, which my wife will love because we have a 2-month-old baby, and I'm focused on my podcast, sharing it on social media, watching tennis, and she's wondering what I'm doing. Where are my priorities? But that's okay. She's pretty understanding. Anyway, everyone, hope you enjoyed this episode. Follow me on Instagram, okay? My social media game is definitely improving, okay? I'm learning how to post interesting reels, etc. So follow me at Chris Hasek-Watt. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. It helps a lot. Comment, tell a friend about it. Really appreciate it. And check out my website, lovemeansnothingpod.com. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.